Good afternoon. I'm Jeff Cox. I'm the Associate Vice Chancellor for Faculty Affairs, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to this open forum, which is part of our academic program review for the College of Engineering and Applied Science. We have today with us a distinguished group of visitors that are helping us with our review. We have Richard Benson, the Dean of Engineering from Virginia Tech, John English, the Dean of Engineering from Kansas State University, Essen Galari, the Dean of Engineering at Clemson University, and Gerald Holder, the Dean of Engineering from the University of Pittsburgh. So they're here over a several-day visit to provide advice to the campus about the future of the College of Engineering and Applied Science. Their visit is the end of a year-long effort by the faculty, leadership, and staff within the college to plan the future developments that the faculty and the staff and the students wish to pursue. This included the writing of a self-study responsive to planning questions set by the college and by the campus, working with an internal review committee for each unit that made sure of the completeness and accuracy of those self-studies, visits by unit-specific, disciplinary-specific external review teams that came in and met with each of the 6 departments to talk about their work, and now this distinguished group of guests that are with us to take up some larger questions, to look for some shared problems and shared opportunities. Today the agenda is wide open. This is an open forum. It is really here for you all to tell us what they need to hear about the college. We will ask that you step up to the microphone and that you identify yourself and say whatever it is you wish to say. My role here is just to kind of keep things moving. The panelists are here largely to listen to you, but they may well have questions they wish to pose back to the group, and really anything goes. 2 just logistical things. We are obviously videotaping this. This is not for broadcast. This is just for maintaining the records of the review so that we know what people had to say. And that at 3:30, when we wrap up the session, right around the corner, kind of in the lobby, there will be a reception where there'll be an opportunity for people to chat more informally about things. So with that, I'll open the floor, and please somebody be brave enough to be the first person. You didn't all come to listen, did you?
We're good at talking.
They can't start with some summary statement of what the report is?
Well, they won't know what their report is until they are done with their visits, which includes, of course, the input from all of you. That would be presupposing their decisions before they had heard from all of you. So Clayton, thank you.
Clayton Lewis, computer science. My question could be, what would be a good example question to ask? I won't ask that.
That's perfect, yeah.
So I'd like to have any thoughts or hear thoughts you might have about the evolving situation of computing and computer science. We're in the College of Engineering. You may have learned that we're exploring developing a degree program in arts and sciences. There are other things possibly happening on campus, the possible creation of new units in which our department might participate, along with our participation in engineering. And I'm curious if this is something you've been hearing about and if you have any thoughts, or for that matter, questions about it.
I'm going to take it on.
Sure, thank you.
I am the Dean of Engineering and Science at Clemson. And 5 years ago when I arrived, there was a computer science department that, with my prior experiences from the National Science Foundation, I convinced them to form a school of computing, that computer science was embedded in the school of computing. But simultaneously with that, the institution, Clemson at the university level, brought in a new chief information officer and looked at building the infrastructure, whether it is now the cyber infrastructure, our connectivity, our capacity, also cloud computing opportunities. So the 2 units over 5 years evolved, and right now it is a very vibrant and functioning unit with 3 different divisions embedded in there. In addition to computer science, human-centered computing, and digital production arts, animation, and visualization focus. It's a wonderful experience, and it is a thriving situation. But I think you have an opportunity here, from what we heard, that you have an institutional commitment for the infrastructure, and there is a wonderful opportunity, from what I see, for the department to collaborate and connect, and within the College of Engineering and Applied Sciences to thrive. So I don't know if that sort of gives you a perspective. Okay. So, yeah.
Jeff Forbes, Chair of Aerospace Engineering Sciences. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for taking so much time out of your busy schedules to come and visit us. But perhaps just to get the discussion going, could each of you tell us what surprised you the most about the College of Engineering and Applied Science after your few days here?
Go ahead.
I'm not sure how to be surprised. I've been paying attention to Colorado for quite a long while, and in fact, you have no idea how often I've cited you in strategic plans that I've written back when I was a department head at Penn State and now as dean at Virginia Tech. I'm a particular fan of the Integrated Teaching and Learning Lab. I love Engineers Without Borders. I think there's a breadth to your programs that is really admirable, and I think a lot of people would want to emulate, and of course a strong focus on active learning, which is very important where I'm at. So we try very hard to do that. I know, of course, that you're facing tough financial straits. We've got 4 state schools represented up here, including several land grants. So we were kind of all in the same boat, I guess. So I think if I had to come up with a surprise, it is just how tough it has been at Colorado. So you're going through a tough stretch. We all are. No doubt we're going to turn the corner pretty soon on this, and we'll start to get back into growth mode. But I guess if I'm not surprised, it's only because I've been paying attention, and but maybe just the severity of the budget difficulties caught me by the greatest surprise.
I would say, I wasn't surprised. More, I was impressed with the quality of the programs and the NRC rankings that were reported. I had looked at those before globally, but not specifically for Colorado. I think I'm impressed with the quality of the faculty, the number of awards that the faculty have generated, the great programs that you have here. Obviously, the ITLL was really impressive and remarkably clean, I have to say.
Surprisingly.
Yes, yeah, and yeah, that would have been a surprise because it's not typical university space. But I also learned more about the aerospace program, your program, that was impressive, and the way that it fits into the community, and that the whole College of Engineering, the whole university, benefits from all the national laboratories that are in this area and the industry that's in this area, and the relationship. I think the technical environment that we're in here in Colorado now is one that has allowed the engineering school to thrive, and one I think that's been really beneficial for the university as a whole. I think the College of Engineering contributes enormously to the University of Colorado in ways that I hadn't understood, and I think it's something that the university should be proud of.
I got really attracted to accept the job, commitment of 3 days here to do this review, because I was really interested in the educational programs, engagement programs, I had heard so much about it. And was I surprised? Yes, it was a wonderful experience, some of the unique programs you have. And it's not only the College of Engineering is doing wonderful things, but also in the sciences, you have some very strong programs in education, in physics, for example. And also the other things that certainly I'm endorsing is the topical areas that the college has chosen. Those are the national high priority areas. and you have the college and the institution has an opportunity to excel in those areas. So, yeah, those are all good things.
The nice thing about being the last person, you can say all of the above. And I don't know if surprise is the right word, but it's things. There were things that I was going, wow, kind of the wow factor was good, you know, and it was already alluded. And you know, we've come through a tough ride the last 4 or 5 years in the economy, and to see your expansive growth in research and your PhD production, and that you know, you got one of two options in a great college. Either you can choose to sit back and lick your wound and say, oh, my woe is us, we can't go anywhere. You all have chosen to go someplace. And so I think that is absolutely admirable. You know, some specific things, I mean, who can't be impressed with the ITL? I mean, that we just kind of, you know, drool seeing a facility like that, and the way you can integrate across different disciplines of our undergraduate experience. And so I think that's just a wonderful, wonderful facility. And I think very, very specific, you know, we all have honors programs back at our institutions. And when I heard about the residential aspect and Scott being with those young people, and then as we had a chance to talk to those students, and they've gone beyond just doing honors thesis and research, but you know, the trigger that really influenced me was that they could attribute things that, you know, those kind of kids are the ones that we hope we don't mess up when they come to college, you know, but you know, to be able to take that type of potential and let them go beyond where they could have gone by coming to college, then you've done something. And every one of those kids, something special has happened to them that they certainly are going to be good stewards of the resources that they've been naturally granted.
Just to encourage conversation. So some of the things you may, you know, we really are here to listen to you, not to give speeches. There may be things that you wish this visiting group to tell the campus about the college that you may think the campus doesn't know. They'll have an opportunity to have an exit interview with the provost and to brief the provost on what they've learned during their visit. So if there are things that you think need to be highlighted, whether these are great accomplishments or whether they are needs within the college, it would be good for our visitors to hear. Do you know of opportunities within the college or between the college and other units on campus that we aren't exploiting that we should be looking at? Do you know of any problems? Are there barriers to the work you want to do? There are issues that have arisen within the reporting already that people may or may not wish to speak to. How robust are our connections with local industry? How connected is the college with the government labs? What are there, if any, issues around faculty evaluation or unit evaluation within the college? These are just some of the kinds of things that you all may wish our visitors to hear. And again, we're here to listen to you, not to issue pronouncements from on high.
Hi, my name is Hans-Peter Schaub. I'm Associate Chair of Graduate Affairs in the Aerospace Department. And I wanted to ask a question. You guys were pointing out the hands-on nature of some of our undergraduate programs, the ITLL. The Aerospace Department is very heavily involved in these things, and it was designed several years ago where enrollments were lower. They've been going up and up and up, which has been stretching resources, and it's very intensive as far as what's required of faculty to cover all these things, to be in the lab, to give all this time to do these things that way. As an outside perspective, do you think this is really a sustainable thing that we can do as things are growing and resources from the state have been plummeting? And do you think it's worth, I mean, it's nice for PR and marketing, but do you as outsiders see real value in the stuff that's been done with the hands-on training and all the efforts and that are going into it? So, sure.
That's an excellent question. The environment at Virginia Tech is very similar. When I look at, the dean earlier showed a pie chart of how the college spends its money, and I could have laid it right down over the top of my college. There's a number of critical things in there. It's important, we all recognize that we've been taking budget cuts, and this is largely driven by what's happening at the state. I should probably tell you where I'm going to go with this. I think your college should grow significantly. Now the question is, how do you grow? Where do you find the resources for that? So if you look at the money that you're spending now and where that money came from, you color the money based on where it came from, half of the money that you spend is direct research expenditures. So that is collectively raised by you all. So one at a time or five at a time or in large groups, you go out as entrepreneurs, you find these contracts, these grants, and you are able to do a lot of good things with that. The state piece is very small compared to tuition. Tuition has been going up at a pretty good clip. So if you look at all the different wedges within that pie chart, every last one of them is going up except for one. So the state piece is going down. Tuition is going up. Your research is going up. You're starting a capital campaign, so the draw on the foundation will grow. It'll grow significantly. The overhead on your research is significant and growing as fast as your research is growing. That, by the way, is very good money. It's fungible money that comes back, at least some fraction, into academic units. So the fact is you have a source there. One of the last things we did with the dean just before coming over here was to ask about student demand. And as I understand it, applications are growing at a good clip and considerably faster than the rest of the university as a whole. This, by the way, is something of a national trend. So on one hand, you are having to become more selective. Now, some people take pride in that. They want to be elite. On the other hand, if you're a state school, I mean, you want to have access to people who could clearly do the work. So this is a problem I face. With every passing year, I have considerably more students applying to my college, and we admit fewer and fewer and fewer of them to hit the same target class. So I would love to grow the size of my college. You have in place probably the most precious resource needed, which is demand. There is demand for people to come here and get an education. There is demand for your skills as researchers. That is good to have. Not everybody has that and can say that. Now the problems are still daunting because you are working with okay numbers in terms of scaled factors, student to teacher, student to classroom seat, student to state dollars. You would need to push ahead on those fronts. So you need space, you need more faculty. These are hard things to get, but bottom line is you have it within your means to address this. And I'll throw in one more anecdotal story. People will bear with me. In a lot of businesses, if your business is off, you really have to be quite concerned. You have to figure out why your widgets aren't selling, what the competition is doing, and you might have to make very significant changes in what you do. To some extent, you can sleep well at night knowing that there's nothing wrong with your product. Now, I know it's always a little offensive to speak of students as products and the like. And furthermore, you're always in self-assessment. That's why we're here. It's not that it's static or steady state. So you are in the business of always assessing the quality of what you do and trying to get better, get better, get better. But the fact is the financial problems that you face are not because you have done something wrong. This is part of a national, even worldwide financial crisis which has hit you. It's hit all of our schools. But what you are doing as educators and researchers is strong. In fact, I'd say strong even on a relative scale compared to other fine universities. So, you're in a good spot. You know that in time you're going to replace those lost state dollars with tuition dollars, overhead on your research, and so on. So I think this college could very seriously contemplate a program for growth that could be quite significant in the next decade or two. And, actually, we haven't written our report, but it's one of the things I'd like to put in it.
I'll just add something to that. I'm from the University of Pittsburgh, and we're a state-related institution, which is a little bit different than some of the universities in Pennsylvania, which are state-owned. So, but the governor recommended a cut in our $160 million appropriation of 50%. So an $80 million budget cut for the university, and I think their goal is to go to zero, so a 100% cut as soon as they can. The truth is that the fraction of money that we're getting from states is going down everywhere. People are getting cuts everywhere. Pitt used to be a private institution in 1960, and I think we're going to be a private institution again. And I think the loss, though, to this country of these quality public institutions that delivered education at a value to large parts of our population is going to be very very impactful. It's one of the shining stars of the United States. It's why everyone in the world wants to come to American universities. private schools and the public schools. And I think it's a real loss, and it's gonna be an issue. But we're gonna have to adapt and become more like private schools in our operation if the state decides that they're not going to support us any longer, and that's going to be something that we're going to have to deal with and move forward on. But we certainly don't want the states to get involved and do for higher education what they've done for high schools in the country. It's not a model we want to emulate. So.
Add a little bit more on and focus on aerospace, because you asked the question about the difference. I think you indicated that aerospace undergraduate program is more hands-on than others. Maybe, I don't know. Based on that, a special consideration for growth for the department, or some based on the workload that is more engaged student specific. I want to focus on the resources. The resources are such that it's very difficult to assign growth based on that. But on the other hand, you have some wonderful opportunities to tap external resources for the kind of teaching you are doing. So it is that new revenue that's going to generate the relief, or you can, of course, go to the efficiency, saying that we're going to do some less. But I would totally recommend the first model, where you have at the national level, you are doing some very unique things to be able to secure resources to address it with new revenue.
I'm Howard Wachtel. I'm a professor of electrical engineering and also of neuroscience. And this week, actually, I'm completing my 50th year on various faculties, starting in 1961 at the Drexel Institute. And obviously, I've seen a few things change. Perhaps you guys have too. But it seems to me that what you said about research funding is a key thing. And the two words always go together, research and funding. And it seems to be the funding that drives the research. And I've seen the progression of research being something that was done kind of on the side. You were a teacher and you did research that was concomitant with your teaching, to doing research as a parallel enterprise to being a researcher who gets a lot of dollars in and occasionally teaches if the chairman or the dean gets on your back enough. And I'm wondering, from your perspectives and what you see here, whether we have crossed some kind of Rubaiyat where teaching is such a low priority compared to research dollars that we need to sort of turn back the clock a bit. And also, with all the dollars coming in, does anybody really care if the research that gets done is any good or of any use? If somebody has a research grant and is convinced that they're just taking the money from the government to fund the university, should they continue to do that research?
Looking at the kind of teaching initiatives you have, yes, 50 years, congratulations, but 50 years, things have changed. What we observe, the best teachers are usually the most active researchers as well, in most institutions actually right now. And research is not something in addition to teaching, but it is equal to teaching, and it actually creates new knowledge, and there's a tremendous integration of teaching and research in the new environment. That's what we are observing and actually rewarding. So that's, I'll let others.
And what I've seen here while I've been sitting at CU, now I come from Kansas State, and so a little bit smaller program, but a land grant, and our charter is a little different, but still very public. As I've sat here and as a dean, you can't help but think resources, where all these resources coming from, and you look about the infrastructure that's been created, like in your BOLD program, your ITL, the investment of instructors who are very good in teaching to make sure that undergraduate experience when they first walk in the door is huge. And so what I see at CU is an incredible investment, not only in recruitment of students, but also retaining them, and also making it a student body that's more reflective of the community of the state of Colorado. So I see great infusion of resources, and I'm sitting there trying to figure out, Rob, how are you affording what you're doing in view of the, what I know, what I get back home on what I could afford to do. So I see an awesome investment in view of that, and I couldn't agree more in view of research and teaching. I think they go hand in glove. I think there are always exceptions. We have a tendency as humans to zoom in on the exceptions rather than the rule. But in the year 2011, scholarship activities embed research, teaching, and professional service, and then furthermore, resource issues from the state, like your pie charts clearly state. We have a responsibility to those like in engineering who can build and bring in resources. I think we have a responsibility to do that, and funding works well with our scholarship, and I think funding is evidence of good scholarship, and we do anything less than that, then I think we're in error. But I think they run in tandem as a rule.
Hi, I'm Liz Jessup from the Department of Computer Science, and with a different roll of the dice, I might have ended up in a math department or an applied math department. And so I'm one of those people here in this college who's not a traditional engineer. And I'll say that for my years here, it's been a little bit of a struggle to fit in. And this idea of being a non-traditional engineer in this college is becoming more important. In computer science, we see that our junior faculty, our young faculty, are coming in with really innovative, creative areas of computer science, things that are even non-traditional in computer science. We have a junior faculty member who essentially invented a field called crisis informatics, and another faculty member in health informatics. What do we do to ensure that these young faculty who don't fit the mold of engineers can thrive in a traditional engineering college?
I think it's sort of human nature to sort of define engineering in a very sort of old-fashioned way. So I think this college in particular has been pretty good at showing a much broader face of engineering. Well, this is an outsider's perspective. But if you ask young people, what do engineers do? We know all of these studies. They think they drive trains, they work with gears. I mean, it's just we've been dealing with this for a long time, and it actually has not so funny ramifications in terms of people choosing the profession. So if you look around the country, you will see very innovative programs going on in some areas. Actually we have two of the 4 departments of engineering education. One is at Clemson, one is at Virginia Tech, the others are Purdue and Utah State. You have the Herbst program. I mean, really, really interesting. So these, I think, by most people's measure, would be considered to be non-traditional engineers, or engineering faculty members, if you will. Also in my home college, we have a Department of Engineering, Science, and Mechanics, and we are hiring people there who are very much to the science side. They may have no engineering degrees, so and they're doing just such interesting and innovative things. But even in departments which we might think of as being very traditional, I'm a mechanical engineer by training. I have always chafed at the idea that engineering is so narrow. It would be defined by what I was doing when I was in high school, and in so many cases, people try to constrain us to continue to doing those things. So I think that the solution is that this college, like any good college, needs to have a very broad view on what it means to be talented, what it means to be successful, and to stretch those boundaries. I think if you're going to have problems, it often happens that it mostly comes from without rather than within. So I would hope among your colleagues, both in your department and in the college level, there would be people who would celebrate some of these boundary-breaking modes of scholarship, if you will, and I think you're apt to see more problems coming from the outside in for people who decide. They might actually be nervous about this. They may almost be fearful about you sort of muscling in on their territory. This is a serious problem, and it's a big one. I mean, it's one that exists everywhere, and frankly, it afflicts our profession. So it's the sort of thing that never ends, but it is changing. It is changing, and maybe not fast enough for any of our desires, but it's the sort of thing we'll have to keep at. And you know, the very fact that you're here, I mean, if you had a very traditional college, you wouldn't be here. You know, so, and trust me, there are such colleges out there.
Yeah, I'm going to add to it. As I indicated, I have the physical sciences, math, and all engineering in one college. So I have a vast variety of cultures in academic units that I integrate in one college. It can be done. It can be done. It can be done. And we are, since mid-90s, we have existed in this new overnight. It was organized 9 to 5, and colleges, 9 deans became 5 deans only, and the institution changed overnight. But after so many years, we have an organization that is very functional, and it can be done. So sciences and engineering together, and I'm going to add to I agree with Dick in terms of these people who are trying to bridge and reach out and connect disciplines is going to be the key players in the future. And they should be recognized and celebrated. So I think those new people you are bringing in is going to be the future of your department, maybe.
I'll say one thing too about it, this computer science. I'm sorry, but you know, one of the things that I've always tried to do was, when I was department chairman as a dean, is to hire faculty whose disciplines were not mine. I'm a chemical engineer. I hired physics people, material scientists, polymers people, biologists onto the faculty. The majority of the faculty still needed to be chemical engineers because there's some courses these other people would struggle to teach. But you know, we all believe that interdisciplinary research is where the most exciting things happen. So I would think that one way of getting interdisciplinarity is to hire it into your program. And I would think someone who's a little bit different would have a more exciting environment than someone who sort of fits in the mode. Now, may not be the case, but you know, I would say that for some people that would be an opportunity, you know, to do something, you know, take the road less traveled and do something that your colleagues aren't doing because you're in a different environment. You have something, an opportunity to do something a little more exciting.
Hi, Beth Myers. I'm the Director of Access and Recruiting for the College of Engineering. And I know, Dick, you mentioned a little bit about growth and how we want to potentially, and I'm not sure we will be growing our college, but if that's one of the suggestions. And we also were talking about how we've been very successful in recruiting and getting some of the top students here and some of the top students across campus. One thing that I would say is that if we do continue to grow, one thing where we need to be very successful is recruiting the top students and also recruiting diverse students. One area where we struggle with that is that, at least at the undergraduate level, we rely heavily on our campus-wide Office of Admissions to help with those. And currently, the College of Engineering has much more aggressive goals for diversity and recruiting than the campus-wide Office of Admissions. So I just wanted to put that out there. If you're meeting with the provost, that might be something to mention. And then also just ask, do you have similar problems at your institutions where there are differences in the caliber of students and maybe the diversity of students that you're looking for than the rest of the campus does?
I always want to answer first. Okay, I'm so sorry. We're going to have to listen to these other folks talk. We have very similar issues. By the way, I found that diversity and numbers go together. They're not counter-correlated. You know, we're substantially larger than we were 6 years ago. But the numbers of underrepresented minorities has grown faster than that growth in the college. The number of women has grown faster. And in some areas, we've seen almost a tripling of Hispanic students over a 6-year period. So they can go together. We have a number of issues that affect us. So I'm at Virginia Tech. So there are layers of stereotype that can find their way. There are people who have a very stereotypical view of what engineers are, what it means to be a tech school, to be in a rural location, to be in the old Confederate South. And I often find myself trying to break down those barriers on multiple ways. I have found that even though we don't do admissions directly, I want to have as much face time as we possibly can get. So we bring guidance counselors to campus. We go on the road. I've now mentioned to this group several times that we've taken student teams to the state fair. And I regard it as ambushing people who didn't go there to bump into a Virginia Tech team. They went there to see a tractor pull, but they found us. And hopefully, when they have this surprise encounter, they might really start to come away with a different impression about what a modern engineering school looks like. I'll tell you one more story. I have a slide that I sometimes use with audiences, and I show the actor Michael Douglas in 3 of his roles. So the first role is American president, and he's the president. And you know, so he's a nice guy, very likable, smart, and he looks good. You know, he's well dressed, he's well groomed. The next movie is Wall Street. He's not such a nice guy. He's Gordon Gekko. Greed is good, but you know, he looks good. He's dressed well. He's well groomed. And then the third movie is Falling Down. Now this is about a laid-off engineer who kind of goes crazy, but now when you look at him, he's got a buzz cut, he's got a pocket protector, he has tape on the glasses, he's got all of this stuff, and this is one of the things we're dealing with. In fact, when my son was young and he saw this slide, he didn't realize it was 3 different people. He immediately picked out the engineer. When I asked him how he picked out the engineer, he said, "Well, Dad, I've seen pictures of you when you worked for Xerox." So, I did not have the tape and I did not have a pocket protector, so all joking aside, you know, we deal with this. You know, there's all of these issues, but the fact is that a lot of engineering schools, and some of this may be due to the recession, we tend to run a little counter-cyclical, but there's a lot of people who would just love to come here, get an education, and they're smart. They're good enough. They're good enough to do the work. You can build a large and diverse and talented pool. You have it within your, you have it, the demand is there. You don't have it within your means. That's the whole trick. How do you get the means to grow the college so you can accommodate that and really start to broaden and diversify your pool?
Yeah, and in Kent State we do have a multicultural engineering program, a women engineering science program. We've seen a 150% increase in the number of underrepresented students in the last 3 years, our student body. So we're seeing some wonderful growth. But I think the thing that I'd like to add, and kind of building on what Dick has just said, is I think there are still untapped opportunities out there. I think there are first generation to college kids who perhaps are not thinking about college today. And there could be multiple reasons why they're not thinking about it. It could be their cultural background, where the family unit just won't turn loose of them. It could be that financially they can't it's just not feasible. And so there are assorted reasons, and I think one of our roles as we move into the next decade is we need to dig on that and seize opportunities. You take the state I represent, very rural when you get to the west, and very urban as you move east, and so there's a wide disparity in the backgrounds of students, and specifically our first generation to college. And so I think we really need to dig in and seize those opportunities, because there are young people who want to be engineers. We are changing the conversation. The National Academy has encouraged us to do so. And it's going to grow, and we know we're going to be facing a national crisis whenever the boomers all end up retiring and the shortage of those who can advance technology. We have a responsibility. Not only should we enjoy the growth in our student body, but we should try to grow it more and grow our infrastructures and look at venues to bring in students who perhaps aren't even thinking about college today, so that in the future they do think about coming to college. It's expensive and it takes resources.
Diversity is not an option, but it is a mandate. So there's no question about it. Recruiting, we talked about, and you have some wonderful programs. But in addition to that, retention, and you have that issue too. Once you recruit them, retaining them and engaging them is just as important. That's preserving the precious few. So, and you're doing really well. I mean, we were impressed with most of those programs that you showed us. And there is never enough. You are never satisfied with what you do, and adding new programs and both recruiting and retention, it is a mandate. So,
one of the at Pitt we have a large variety of programs that are designed to encourage diversity. We have a high school program that works with the kids from Pittsburgh public high schools and some from the surrounding community, and they go 9th through 12th grade, and we send 100% of them to university, just about. And they're mostly minority kids, but only 5% come to engineering, and maybe 10% come to Pitt, and 90% go to, you know, Brown or Penn State or wherever they want to go. And it's not, it's, you know, it's designed sort of as a recruiting program, but really as a program to take underrepresented students, and it's a good program. That's a good program. We have 5-6% African Americans, just to talk about one particular group, which is about the national average. It's not terrific, but what I've identified as the problem in engineering in general is that it's in the graduate student population that really there should be an effort to recruit. We know that nationally 1.5% of PhDs are awarded to African Americans. So if you're trying to hire someone on the faculty, which I believe if we had 10% African American faculty, we could recruit all the African American undergraduates that we wanted. That would be the best recruiting strategy. But if only 1% of the PhDs are African American, it's hard to hire a lot of African American faculty. And you know, if you have 2%, we have 2% African American faculty, so we're double the PhD average. It's still a terrible number. So I've made a decision at Pitt is that we want to invest in recruiting graduate students into our program. That's where we're putting emphasis, so that we can create some faculty, and once we get some faculty, we'll be able to attract students, African American students who might choose science or medicine or something else besides engineering, or that were ready to go into engineering but didn't understand it. They didn't know anyone who was in engineering. Get those students who would be a strong recruiting tool. So that's just a sort of a different perspective on things that I think is important, that in response to your question, what are we doing? That's one of the things where we're really trying to emphasize is the graduate student population.
Okay. I wonder which way you came into campus. Did you pass by our new law building on the corner of Baseline and Broadway? Big.
They would have come up from the Boulderado, so.
Oh, you took a more scenic route, did
Yeah.
you? Okay. So, at Jeff's invitation, I have a question for you, maybe, to bring back to the campus administration. And if you had seen our law building, wonderful structure, right next to it is the old law building, Fleming. Nice building. And about a year ago, I had suggested to our dean, it was being used as swing space at that time. We have a new community building on Regent Drive, and people like dining services and other places were shoved into the old law building and then shoved out when their space was ready. So I had suggested to our dean, why doesn't aerospace take over the whole old Fleming law building? We could move our teaching, research, everything, all the faculty, which by the way are distributed throughout this whole engineering center. And I'm not sure if he took that to the campus administration or not. But the question I have for you all is, for you to take to the administration, you know, why hasn't the administration, given the current and anticipated growth of the college, renovated that building and turned it over lock, stock, and barrel to the College of Engineering? And this question may arise out of ignorance of the big picture on campus, I don't know, but to us it's a relevant question. Thanks.
We've actually sold the Fleming Building to 5 different units. It's made us a lot of money. So.
Hello, my name is Lisa Wade, and I'm a graduate student in the Civil Engineering Department. And kind of going back to the part about the nexus of research and teaching, I think that really comes together in the graduate students that we have at the university, especially the graduate students that find funding through graduate teaching assistantships. And one of the things that's been a trend is that graduate teaching assistantships have been going down, and even as class enrollment have been going up. For example, the class that I was the TA for this semester was 5 years ago was a class of roughly 40 to 50 students and taught by 2 TAs and a professor. And this semester, it was a class of 90 to 100 students that was taught by 1 professor, 1 TA, and a grader. So is there any way that we can work to preserve the funding and therefore the efforts that the graduate students can make toward the teaching that goes on both at the undergraduate level and for their own advancement as well, and still have money left over for everything else that college needs?
PhD or an MS student?
I'm a master's student.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I have 2 units that have similar issues. That's mechanical engineering and civil engineering. It's burgeoning enrollments in, I'll give you numbers. I have 600 majors, sophomore to senior, 200 per year in mechanical, 550 in civil. So the pressure, I understand, it's almost a national trend. I'm sure Dick will sort of say similar things with Virginia Tech, because Clemson and Virginia Tech are similar in terms of, the resources are, there are issues there. The only challenges we have, we try to break the smaller sections and try to put additional trickle in resources, sometimes instructors, and even engage undergraduates to be helpers in the classroom, in the problem-solving sessions and so forth. Try to alleviate it, but the resource limitations are causing this. It's a national trend. I really don't know how to answer it for Colorado. So.
Well, the only thing, I mean, obviously there are the obvious solutions is how you use your return on indirect and your release that faculty provide in buying out of courses. And that runs, I mean, see, it's hand in glove with your research program. And so as faculty members, those who have a great degree of research and need some relief in view of release from the classroom, and those who perhaps could expand further into the classroom and get salary savings. It's just management of resources. And the reality is, in the 23 years that I've been a faculty member, state subsidies have just gone down and down and down, and much of your TA budget, line budget, came from the state, and that's been hit pretty hard by budget cuts. That is what it is. And so what you find, those department heads who are really trying to squeeze as much out as they can, they will take discretionary funds. And when I was a department head, we had, I think, 6 or 7 lines funded for TA, and we would often have 20 to 22 TAs funded in the department. And so we do that through just release and return on overhead and discretionary funds, and it's going to become more and more necessary for us to be creative in the way in which we handle the finances. I agree. It's just the way you got to do it.
Hello, Ken Anderson, Associate Chair of Department of Computer Science. So I have two questions, and they're all related to the boom and bust cycle that we see in computer science, where in 2001, when the dot-com crash occurred, our majors went down. The perception was there was no jobs in computer science, so no students came, even though the demand had righted itself by 2006 or so. We're starting to see a growth now as demand goes back up. Our incoming class size for the last 3 years have grown by about 30%, and we're seeing signs that we'll have the largest incoming freshman class size that we've seen in a while this fall. So one thing we're interested in figuring out is how do we get ahead of in terms of our teaching capacity of our intro courses, because now students from arts and sciences, business, and other places are taking our intro courses. How do we get out ahead of the teaching demand for those courses, and what's the best strategic way to either engage the campus or the college for acquiring those resources? And the second is that hand in hand with the demand, we're getting more and more requests from industry to interact with them, allow them to influence curriculum so that they can see the particular types of students they want coming out the other end occur and the like. And we're seeing, we'll talk to small startups, and 3 or 4 of the CEOs of the startup companies want 50 students each. And that's not even including things like Google and other companies that can easily hire that or more. So what's the best way for a Department of Computer Science to interact with industry? You've got all the teaching demands, all the research demands, and the like, and it's going to take a lot of focused effort to really see anything come from those interactions. So what are some strategic ways of doing that?
Let me talk about student-to-teacher ratios and the like, but I want to generalize it. It isn't about computer science per se. It could be about any department. I'll start out by saying something which is a bit provocative, and that is I'm a supporter of enrollment caps, and that can really upset some people. And I'm a father of 3 kids, either in college or one that just graduated, so I understand full well how frustrating that can be when a young man or woman's gone off to college and they're making what the university might regard as minimally acceptable grades, C's and betters. And then we say, well, you can't choose this major. So I understand that, and I know that presidents and provosts and deans and others hate to take the pushback that comes from that. But the fact is that demand among the engineering or the science programs, they don't all go in lockstep. So most of us are old enough to remember there were times when computer science and computer engineering were going through the roof. Aerospace was down, mechanical engineering was somewhat down, and it's almost completely flipped right now. And wait another 5 to 10 years and we'll see yet other trends. So I have advocated for caps. Now let me explain a little bit about enrollment caps. I believe that they should be set painfully high, and it's really meant as just a holding action, a temporary action, so you can address it the old-fashioned way, which is to try to move resources into the department that needs it. As you know, student demand can change very quickly. Faculty size cannot. It takes a while to hire people. We don't want people to leave. That is, we want them to make tenure and spend their careers here, and we certainly don't dismiss them for idle reasons like there aren't that many students. So we don't do that. We're not like a lot of businesses. On the other hand, if you have way too many students, you're doing a number of things that are really rather awful. One is you're providing a terrible education to the students. And there's no way to differentiate from the first student to the last student. I mean, if it's bad for everybody. You're making it very hard for faculty members if they're teaching enormous classes when they thought maybe they were going to teach still challenging classes, but ones of reasonable size. And let's not forget that there are competitor schools which would very gladly hire away our people, and using as one of the tools that they can lighten the teaching load. Now, again, when I talk about enrollment caps, I set them painfully high, not to be at a cushy level or an optimal level, and it is to buy time so we can address it in the more old-fashioned way. So we're actually working on this right now at Virginia Tech, where the number that we've set is a ratio of 6 to 1, and that's an entering student. So however many faculty you have, if it's N, we would permit up to 6N students to join that department in that year. Now things vary because some schools admit students in the freshman year, sophomore year, even junior year. But I think it helps. Again, it can provide a better quality experience for the teachers, for the faculty, and again allow us to try to deal with these issues. So, we've been promoting this. I have personally promoted it as a way to improve the quality of those who are in the program. I should say that I also put a bottom to my top, and that is, if a student has a 3.0 or better, we let them in. Because I have the gumption to turn away a C student, but I just can't bear to turn away a B student. So I think this is how I would address this problem for you. So you've seen boom and bust in a fairly short period of time, and this is one way we can sort of flatten those peaks a little bit. And I should also point out, it actually increases the overall capacity of the college. So at a time when some of the majors are they're just dying, there's other majors that actually have capacity. It's ironic, but enrollment caps actually increase the capacity of the college as a whole.
I don't know if I heard you correctly, that you indicated there were certain industries that were really demanding your product, the workforce needs of the industry. And if you have relationships with the industry, you have the choice to be very entrepreneurial. Have them invest in some temporary funds for bringing in instructors. And I've done this where certain power companies have requested certain things where they have on a yearly basis invested in lecturers and instructors and other things. So there are some entrepreneurial things that even at the department or faculty level you can implement to generate resources towards the issue.
Okay, I'm Ute Herzfeld. I'm a research professor in electrical and computer engineering and also a senior scientist at what's called CERES, which is the Cooperative Institute for Research in Environmental Sciences. And I've been affiliated with applied mathematics since 1993 or so. And I would like to pick up on what Liz Jessup said about interdisciplinarity. Because I find, trying to bridge science and engineering and mathematics is really important. And on the other hand, when you look at where the department hires, when it comes down to it, they hire always in the core disciplines. It's even more difficult to do interdisciplinary teaching. I've done interdisciplinary courses, and it's hard to even get the smallest amount of funding to do so, which is what I have to do as a research professor. It still works, but I heard you say it's been working at your universities. And I think we'd like some more information on how you make it work. How do you bring things forward? Clearly, suppose you want to fill the gap between building technology and actually using technology. For instance, advise NASA on how to build the next cryospheric satellite so we know why and if the Greenland ice sheet is melting. Those are real questions where we need real answers. And yet geography thinks I'm too technical, engineering, everyone thinks one has the wrong stable smell if one really wants to put a foot down and do something that lies partway in the wrong department, quote. And so from you, I'd like to know some real concrete advices for the college on how we can broaden to indeed do interdisciplinary education and research.
I'm going to make an attempt, but it's not an easy situation. To have collaboration, interdisciplinary work means you have to have collaborations of different disciplines, and frequently that comes along with different cultures. So you need so many things. There is a technical adjacency that you need, complementarity in the knowledge base, but on top of that you need the individual personal styles to match for collaboration. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. But it doesn't mean that because something did not work that we should not be trying it, because there are some wonderful examples. And I thought you being particularly part of CERES, that is already an existing structure, so there is some functional aspects of a center or institute that is in place. And these things, people make tremendous difference, leaders, individual collaborators. So when a unit is functioning, an institute or an interdisciplinary team is functioning, there are multiple layers of alignment. And if it exists, it exists. If it doesn't exist, then you have different challenges that emerges from different corners. So I don't have a magic solution to this. I think people make it happen or they take it apart. So it requires a lot of buy-in from multiple levels. That's the only experience I have.
I know this seems a little like testifying before a Senate panel, but it's just because we're taping. Don't be shy if you have things to say.
So Eric Frew from the Aerospace Engineering Sciences Department. I just wanted to make a follow-up comment to the honors program, which you brought up at the very beginning. You saw we have a great honors residential college program or aspects to our honors program, but we've really struggled as a college to integrate the honors program into our curriculum. And I think that the college could benefit from your thoughts and suggestions on how we might integrate that honors program into our curriculum, not just into the residence hall.
Well, I don't know all the details on exactly what transpires in the courses and the honors thesis. But as the father of a daughter who's graduating here next weekend, she was called last week and she had defended her thesis. And I don't know what kind of structure you have in place here at CU in view of those kind of things. But I do know the nation is looking at undergrads engaged in research. And I also know we're going to be starving the future economy on advanced degrees in engineering. And so I think that not only is a nation looking at more undergrads engaged in research, I think we need to be providing excitement for kids, young people who will move towards advanced degrees. I think they need to be rigorous. I think they need there has to be curriculum and coursework that they line up to become the person they want to be in view of the discipline. And I think there ought to be where she happens to be, that you cannot graduate with distinction without being an honors graduate. So there is an ultimate carrot. If you want summa cum laude, like she's going to graduate, you have to be an honors graduate. And that seems a little bit rough and forceful, but I think there are measures in which you can get engaged institutionally, but it just depends on how far CU would go, in view of getting them involved. But absolutely, we are bound by the right thing to do is getting undergrads. As a department head, I found an amazing resource in engaging more and more undergrads in funded capacity in view of research on our research projects, working right beside our PhD students and our postdocs, and seeing what the undergrads can do in view of research. Can be, I left previous employer with an honors student, and he finished after I moved to K-State. His topic gave rise to 2 master's theses at K-State. It just works, and I don't know, you have to figure out the way that gels with your culture here at CU.
I'll say something about the question, I think, was how do you get the honors program integrated into the curriculum? And I think one of the challenges for an engineering school, and I know it's true at Pitt as well, is that if you want to have courses that are designated as honors courses, you have a challenge in that sometimes you only have one section of a course, so it's either going to be an honors course or not. So you need to look to those courses that have multiple sections, and that one of those sections would be a reasonably sized section for an honors course. So one of the things we do at the University of Pittsburgh is we have some courses that are called engineering courses that people all across the university engineering school take. Certainly we have a freshman engineering course. We have 1 or 2 sections of honors in those courses. And then we have some common courses in statics and mechanics and things like that. And we have honors in those courses, and I think a statistics course. So you can, that's sort of a practical problem. You find those courses where you have multiple sections. You could teach, I think we teach an honors thermodynamics course as well. You could, if you have a big enough department and you have multiple sections, you could designate one of those as an honors section as well. But the truth is, if you're in electrical engineering, how many juniors honors students do you have, and if you're offering an advanced course. So that's one of the challenges, but it's one way to look at it, is try to identify those courses. And I think the other way of doing it is was mentioned, is with research. We have research programs that honor students get supported. So they get $5,000 to work on a research project for a semester or for a year. And they can use that $5,000 as a summer stipend or to buy something or however they want. And the Honors College provides that, and there's an application. You guys have something, I think, that's a little bit similar to that. And that could be a component. But the other thing we do for our Honors College, which I think is interesting, is anyone can join the Honors College if they want to, but you don't get an honors degree. So if you want to sit in an honors section and you're not, you've got I think you have to have a B average. Maybe it's 3.25, I forget what the number is. And you just have to get permission of the instructor. And so if the instructor is trying to hold the class to 20, the honor students get first priority. But if he's only got 10 students, then he or she can let some other students into it if the student really has an ambition and is very flexible, and the faculty are happy to do that in most cases. So you can take that. And then you can go through this honors program, and you get a degree in your discipline, but you can get what we call a bachelor's of philosophy, and that requires a thesis to be completed. But 80% of the students in the honors program, and the honors program has facilities that are not identical to what you have, but in the same line, really nice, comfortable, beautiful facilities for the honors college. Students can participate and go hang out there and get the free food and sit on the couches or whatever, talk to other honors students, and stay up all night on the 30th floor of the cathedral, whatever. It's they can do those things, but then 80% of them don't actually get an honors certificate. They just say they were in the honors program.
Hi, my name is Christian Kopf. I'm Associate Director of the Honors Program of the College of Arts and Sciences. And I'm not here so much to ask a question as to hope that you'll address some issues in your report which seem to be important to at least people I talk to in arts and sciences. One is a national issue, what effect the H-1B program has on the job market in engineering, and how this should be affecting the way we're looking at things. When you're outside of engineering, you hear a lot of different and often extreme comments about how A, wonderful, or B, bad it is. On the level of CU Boulder, this was confirmed by Bill Kempfer when we had the kickoff session here. And the fact is, the undergraduate teaching mission of the College of Arts and Sciences produces a lot of the money. The reason why the state hasn't done us in, a lot of our operating expenses come from undergraduates in arts and sciences, and especially out of state. Some professional schools are in the black traditionally, education is, businesses. Others are not, music and engineering, law are 2, 3 that are not. And granted the strengths of, not all these schools are equally good, granted the strengths of this engineering program, I hope your report will address the hopes of achieving being in the black, or the reasons why that can't happen, granted that, as we all now acknowledge, our economic situation has changed from the 1950s and 1980s, and we're looking at a much different world. Certainly, just to throw out the comments about arts and sciences, staff hasn't seen raises in years. A lot of the teaching faculty haven't. We have a serious problem with maintaining our buildings that Kempfer himself brought up to our president when he was last here, and the president knew about it. And yet those buildings provide most of our operating expenses and also help good professional schools keep on going. And last but not least, the honors issue. There are issues where we've been doing things similar to engineering, and the RAPs is what I'm thinking of, where it's sort of acknowledged that the honors RAP and the engineering RAP are sort of the gold standard. And Professor Saylor, a very wonderful history teacher who runs one of the other RAPs, has commented that you guys are doing what we should be doing. That is, there's really high standards. But honors at and arts and science has had problems with some of the things that have been going on over a period of time. And obviously, you're going to suggest differences. Both classics and honors. The RAP is a residential academic program where students live in the dorm and actually have a curriculum focused on them. And the administration would like to see that grow. And it has been growing very fast. And some of these programs are of very solid academic standards, and we're conceited enough to think that the honors RAP is, and everything we've learned about the engineering RAP is that we're on the same wavelength. And there are some others where, since this isn't about them, we'll just bracket that discussion, or we'll erase that part of the tape, or whatever is the appropriate comment, as you'd think in any growing situation. But it's important for the economic stability of the school because these students pay extra. I mean, on and on. We're not going to get more money from the state. On the honors level, we've had problems in coordinating and working together. Without saying that there aren't good things about HERPS, both the classics department and the honors program have not always been sure what the standards are and how they fit into the CU Boulder standards. For a long time, I'd like to hear this is going away, but I haven't heard it, Latin honors in engineering has been based on the grade point average. In arts and science, since the 1930s, since the time of George Norland, it's been based not on GPA, that's a secondary consideration, but on the paper, thesis, and the defense. And honors is given by the Honors Council, not by any department or any single faculty committee. Ultimately, there are a lot. And honors, this is something just to ask, I don't expect an answer so much, but we think one way to help integrate the honors level and the undergraduate level would be to work with a program that's been around since the 1930s, one of the earliest, constantly mentioned in attitudes towards CU, reviews of CU as a strong program. Constantly we're being told by admissions that that's one reason why good students come to the College of Arts and Sciences. And like to see that, you know, we're working together in the ways we can be, or if we can't, why? And I'm not asking any of you to solve some of these issues. Some of them have been around literally for decades. Some of them are part of new innovative things we're doing. But just, it would be great if this were part of your report, because this is going to be a public report, at least the final version, and we'll get to see it too. And the more we can understand what engineering is doing, the better we can work with them and they can work with us. So thank you for listening to these comments.
Any other take? Yes, please.
I'm Bev Louie with the Bolt Center. I've have taught a lot, and I'm quite interested in the engineering education mission, and I noticed that 2 of your programs have engineering education departments. So as we're trying to put more emphasis on our engineering education mission, what advice do you have for us? And I'm interested in hearing how the presence of your programs has changed your undergraduate educational mission. Thanks.
It's obviously it's directed to Dick and I in this case. Yes, in 2007, I started an engineering and science education department. The Clemson being engineering and science college, we have the opportunity to have math, chemistry, engineering, general engineering, and integrated in a department where we have faculty. We have right now 5 faculty members in that department whose research, they are disciplinary faculty, discipline-based education research is their agenda. So they do look at doing very creative scholarship, funded research, focused on education in sciences and engineering. But what is the opportunity for us is to pull together our foundational freshman, sophomore level science and engineering courses and make those laboratories for those faculty that have unique pedagogy, or they have some ideas that can be tested, and we feel we are the right size. What we need right now is a building, actually infrastructure that is being designed to house these in an environment where we can have these unique facilities and arrangements for testing some of these ideas. So unfortunately in our case, we did hit the economic downturn, and the growth of the department has been, we have managed to keep it intact. It is high priority for us, but we haven't managed to grow it to the extent that we would like. So that is the setting at Clemson. There's unique opportunities for us, and I still strongly believe that we will be, because of our structure, will be different in harnessing all those things and making things better for those very large classes that we can impact. And we already teach all of our calculus sequence in a scale-up mode. These are very unique arrangement round tables. You might have heard about it. It is an acronym, Student-Centered Active Learning. In the math department and mechanical engineering, the required 5-credit course is taught in that environment where students can actually do projects or solve problems and be able to share their in peer-learned environment. So, you know, those things are happening, but we have a chance to really make it much more systemic and impact the whole university in those foundational courses. That is the goal. And so I can share so much. It could be much more impactful.
Well, I love our Department of Engineering Education, and I can brag on it because it was founded by my predecessor as dean in 2004. I showed up in 2005, but I'm a huge supporter. We have about 20 faculty members. You should understand, before we had this department, we had a Department of Engineering Fundamentals. And this was a cadre of folks. Today we might describe them as professors of practice, people who might have had careers elsewhere. They did a good job, but pretty much all they did was teach the freshmen. And they did okay. But the vision was to create a department whose field of scholarship was pedagogy. And so this department has almost no resemblance to the old Department of Engineering Fundamentals, which is pretty remarkable considering I'm only dating this really from 2004, although even then we were starting to hire in people who would look very different. And this was actually a factor in one of the questions I answered earlier. We have many people there who don't have traditional engineering backgrounds. They might have, say, an undergraduate degree in chemical engineering followed by a PhD in fine arts or in English. One woman was a former assistant department head in the Department of English. They run our communication center, and as I pointed out, their research field is pedagogy. So we're going to have an enormous team in Vancouver in a couple of months for the ASEE meeting. They publish frequently in the Journal of Engineering Education. They are wonderful scholars. Among them, they've picked up now 3 career awards, 1 PCASE award. They're adding so much to the environment. They often partner with our programs in other ways. I think many of you know that for career awards, it really helps to have a strong educational component. They help other faculty members from other departments build strong proposals by linking their expertise in pedagogy to the work that might be going on in chemical engineering or mechanical engineering and so on. And this certainly extends far beyond just young faculty members. Across the college, they are adding a lot to just the breadth of what we do. Since they do research on teaching and learning, we try to learn from them. So we try to foster really the diffusion or the dispersion of what they have learned about good teaching techniques to get it out into our other departments. I mentioned earlier that I'm a strong believer in active learning. They've done a wonderful job helping us really understand how to make active learning a success. So this has been just a tremendous asset for our college. I recommend it highly to anybody. And just to show you, I put my money where my mouth is. My sister-in-law at one point had an offer to join a biomedical engineering department or a Department of Engineering, Education, and Science, and she asked me, yes, at Clemson, and she asked me which did I recommend, and I encouraged her to go into the Department of Engineering, Education, and Science, and I think she's doing reasonably well.
One of the career awardees this year. We do have 3 in the department, and the 4th person has multiple NSF awards.
I'm Jana Murphy, the HR director for the college. I just wanted to put a plug in for our staff. They haven't had a raise in 3 years. They work really hard, and yet they do a wonderful job. And I'm sure you heard it from all your department chairs, but I just thought it would be worth reiterating that.
This is something I lose sleep over. I think it's more than the faculty that we haven't given raises to staff. And for the first time, we're trying to give bonuses, and at the institutional level, trying to set some limits on some revenue accounts in the departments to be able to do this. I'm not helping you in answering, making a recommendation, but at least I'm trying to tell you that this is so pervasive all over the place too, and we are all hurting for this. And I frankly lose more sleep over this than I do for faculty.
Yeah, I would just say, actually, all the staff we met were really impressive, and all the non-traditional faculty were really impressive. So even though we've been talking about the quality of the programs and the terrific faculty, I think those 2 groups actually distinguished themselves during this visit.
Any last questions? We're about at the end of our time. I want to remind you there is a reception around the corner. I want to thank you all for being here. You've been very helpful, certainly much more polite than my friends and colleagues in arts and humanities. None of you suggested that central administration was basically a bunch of devils running the university. So we appreciate that. And please join me in thanking our wonderful guests for being with us today.